in unmistakable love is unmistakable love receives. This is critical to understanding God's love. God's love is a love that you receive. 1 John 3:1 says, "See what great love the Father has given us that we should be called God's children, and we are." The reason the world does not know us is that it didn't know him. Now, this is a fascinating scripture. He goes in and he says, hey, listen, so what great love the Father has bestowed on us that we should be called God's children. How many of you, by show of hands, you have kids? Okay, you love them, right? Did they do anything to really deserve that love at the point of conception? Anybody? No? You didn't even know them. Matter of fact, for many of us, we weren't even thinking about it. Come on, anybody? But contrary to what, woke culture will say, there is an outcome to the twinkle in your eye and moments with your spouse, hopefully, right? That produce offspring. You think to yourself, did you have kids because you just needed them? I mean, how many of you, by show of hands, you're like, man, I had kids and it's like my life was so much less complicated. Kids just simplified everything. I have more money in my bank account. I mean, I have more time on my schedule. I don't know, I'm just at peace. Anybody who's had kids, you know that you understood what it meant, right, to have a joy that surpasses all understanding, peace, right, that you needed from God. Because the moment they're born, you're just like, you just want to keep them alive, and all of a sudden the stress and the right. I heard a friend, a counselor friend that I listen to regularly. Somebody shows up in his office, and he was all depressed and down and out, and he's like, man, what's wrong with me? And the counselor's like, nothing's wrong with you. I'm honestly surprised that everybody's not like this all the time, Just with everything you have going on in our life, in our world, right? Unmistakable love, he says here, is a love from God, the perfect Father, to his kids. Why does the world not understand it? Because they're not kids. They're not God's kids. Your kids receive your love. As a matter of fact, I believe the love of a parent is the closest love we get to this agape love that we're going to learn about. The word here is agape. It's the unconditional love of God. Not an unconditional love. You can't do that. There's no such thing. You don't have an unconditional love for God. All right? You don't have an unconditional love for people apart from God. You can't do that in yourself because you're conditional. It's true. Like, you're conditional. Like, I mean, you're like, not my kids, I'll always love them. That don't mean they're always going to live in your house. Come on, anybody. You got some conditions to closeness and relationship. And this side of heaven, like, this is a part of God that you and I cannot get on our own. Love has to come to us from God. It is the agape, the word's agape, the unconditional love of God. You receive it so that you can reflect it. That's what we're taught in Scripture, the unconditional love of God. The other word I want to focus here is the word bestowed. It's not really a word that we use a lot these days. I doubt you walk up to the breakfast table and say to your kids in the morning, I hereby bestow these waffles upon you, my child. Right? But it literally is a Greek word that means to give someone as his own, like to grant them, to supply, to endue them, right? I believe the closest thing we have to even understanding this is parenthood. I believe that if you stick it out in marriage and you put God first, I think maybe 25 years down the line you can start to experience this too, but it comes from God. This is important because we're immersed in a world that screams, I'll do this for you if you do this for me. And if we're not careful, we bring that relationship, that idea into our relationship with God, and it will never fit. Relationships in our culture have followed this mantra, and many people find themselves asking this question. I thought your love for me was based on who I am, not on what I can do for you. Only to realize it's not, right? In the original language, I'm going to break down a few words because I do think it's very important for you to understand, because when people use the word love, they can get it out of order. I believe with all my heart, if you're in here and you've given your life to Christ, there's nothing that can separate you from the love of God no matter what. The devil can't take your soul. You're destined for heaven, man. It's going to be an incredible place. But if he can't steal your soul, he will get you so confused, which is what he did to the church here. He'll get you so confused about what something means that you won't be effective in your life. You see, in the beginning, God spoke order to chaos. In your life, there's patterns. God speaks order into your life. Order is a great thing. Aren't you glad you can hop on the interstate and get from one state to the other? People used to backpack, okay? But what happened? There were roads that were carved out into those mountains and into those regions to be able to get from point A to point B. We don't want to get lost in love. There are actually several Greek words which is the language that the New Testament was written in, that give us an idea of love. I'm going to give you three that I think will be really helpful for you in sorting this out. The first kind of love is a word called phileo, and this is friendship love. Think of Philadelphia, the city of what? Brotherly love. This is the love of doing life with another and enjoying one another. It entails a strong emotional connection. There's another love called eros. This is an erotic, physical, sexual love. This is the physical intimacy designed for the relationship between one husband, which is a biological male, one wife, which is a biological female, in the confines of a marriage with God. Okay, you're confused about that.